A cannabis expert at Swakopmund has urged government to allow the cultivation of hemp to create jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Angela Prusa has questioned why pharmacies and supermarkets are allowed to import and sell such products while the rest are fined or jailed. Angela, who is a cannabis expert, now joins us via Skype with more details. Angela, good morning and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Angela, you've been, advocating for the use of cannabis for quite a while now, quite a few years. Talk to us about the current situation, where Namibia is concerned.
Well, currently in Namibia, cannabis is still scheduled as a illegal drug that sits in the same category as things like heroin and tick, which is absolutely, in my opinion, it's ridiculous because these are really harsh drugs and cannabis has a lot of potential for therapeutic use, for industrial use. And so when we look at currently the laws that pertain to cannabis, that it's a human rights issue. Mm-hmm. And so it's a law that Namibian government and lawmakers need to look at.
Currently, cannabis cultivators are usually heavily targeted by law enforcement as well as the NDF. Why do you think there's such an aggression towards the crackdown on cannabis?
To be quite honest, I think cannabis cultivators and users are easy targets for the police and the drug squad. We have a lack of policing when it comes to, the harder drugs like man-drugs and cane and tick that flood our streets. We have a lack of policing when it comes to murders, domestic violence, gender-based violence. And so I think that the police and the drug squad are using their resources wrongly and targeting the wrong kind of people. But cannabis users and cultivators are easy targets.
Mm-hmm. Let's just focus for a minute on the health benefits where cannabis is concerned. There are plenty, but perhaps you'd like to share with us some of the most prominent ones that you know of.
Well, we here for hours when we're talking about the therapeutic benefits of cannabis. But I would like to just, first state that the fact why cannabis is such an amazing medicine, natural medicine, is because we have the endocannabinoid system within our bodies. And so we have the same receptors and the same compounds that cannabis produces in our body. And so when we bring cannabis into our body, it's like a lock and key chain and it works really well together. And so things like anxiety, things like sleep disorders, chronic pains, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome. There's so much chronic conditions that cannabis relieves, provides symptom control and relieves people of this suffering that they are going through. And then also cannabis has a lot of promise with cancers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Of course. We see in African, cannabis industries rapidly emerging in countries such as South Africa, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and so forth, with significant steps actually being taken towards, liberalized cannabis regulation. But what do you think? Why is it that Namibia is not following suit or showing any interest?
So I think it's a very interesting point, because my personal opinion on this is that when we look at our previous ministers, some of them who are now sitting in jail for corruption, they had, even though they blocked the path for the citizens to be a part of legalization, and even though they said that, cannabis cannot be legalized for A, B, C, and D, they had their own agenda with this, A lot of the ministers in the fish rot scandal also themselves got licenses in our neighboring countries like Lesotho. So one has to, see that they obviously do know the benefits of cannabis, and they're also well aware of the potential of income that cannabis can bring. And so I think it's a moral question, and it's also a question that certain individuals within the government might have their own agendas with this plant, you know. So it's really important that we engage the public and the communities that have been previously harmed by cannabis prohibition and bring them into this debate, because this plant is a plant for the people. It's not another plant for the government to monopolize on, you know. And so I think our government does know the potential of this plant. And I have recently done a presentation for various ministers within the government. I have written a proposal for law reform with supporting evidence as to why the laws pertaining to cannabis should be looked at and changed. And so I'm hoping that this will start moving things along now with a new set of ministers in place who will hopefully put the plight of the people first and the well-being of the people first, because this plant has a lot of potential and we need to utilize that potential.
Now, I understand that pharmacies and supermarkets in Swakopmund are allowed to import and sell, products of this nature, while the rest are filed or jailed. And you questioned this. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, so to me, this is utterly, it's hypocrisy. If the big chains like Spar and Disgem and, certain pharmacies in Namibia can stock and sell and import, essentially what is cannabis and have it on their shelves, yet us, the everyday citizens, are being arrested for cannabis. We need to look at why one law is, made for the corporations and one law is made for the citizen.
Right.
There is so many CBD products on the shelves of so many shops in Namibia, yet when we as Namibians approach the Medicines Regulatory Council and we apply for pilot licenses to show the government what we can do with cannabis, or with hemp, we are always blocked. There is no, they don't even engage in the subject. And also we are being arrested whether we have CBD in our houses or whether we have cannabis in our houses. Yet these institutions are allowed to sell this plant. So there's a hypocrisy. There's obviously people using loopholes within the law, and one law applies to shops and then one law seems to apply to the citizens. And This is where the Namibians need to start getting involved. We need to start questioning this, and we need to question the lawmakers as to why this is happening in the first place.
And now you are of the opinion that Namibia can start growing hemp to create jobs for those who have become unemployed due to COVID-19. Talk to us about your views on how you see this being sustained.
Yeah, so I do think. Sorry, I can keep hearing myself. So
I hear you fine. That's all right.
I'm a little bit thrown off. Okay, so I do think that the cannabis plant has huge potential in Namibia to create jobs, especially in this pandemic. And to me, it became really visible during this lockdown, while whole industries are crumbling and people are not allowed to go to work. If we would have put seeds in the ground, hemp seeds in the ground 3 months ago, by now they would have grown to their full potential and we would have had employed people to grow these seeds. So we're creating jobs in growing cannabis. And then once that cannabis is grown, there is so many products that you can make from the cannabis plant. And just to name a few, which would be relevant to Namibia, bricks, natural bricks. We can create cheap, affordable, healthy, carbon neutral housing, which is labor intensive. So we're creating jobs, across multi sectors. We can create paper, we can create textiles. So we can revive industries in Namibia, with the plan that uses less water than cotton, that uses less water than cement, that is, you know, sequestering carbon as it grows, that is cleaning the soil as it grows more so than any other plant. And it's, you know, it's putting nutrients back into the soil. And then we can be making a huge array of products. And at every level, you're creating an industry, you're creating jobs. And these are jobs that are not just available in the cities where people have to, you know, be migrating. These are jobs that would be available in the rural areas, you know, that can be set up as community grows, for example, that can also benefit people who don't have the resources to come to the cities or to get, you know, to go to university or to go to college or get these papers. You know, there's so much potential across different sectors to create jobs with this plant. And I do not understand why we are not engaging in this. You know, I really, if there's one thing I want to urge the Namibian public to do is to buy hemp seeds and put them in the ground. We can buy CBD products in Spa and Disgem. So we as Namibian citizens should be putting hemp seeds in the ground. We should be planting that hemp. And in 3 months, we can start building houses for our people.
Definitely very interesting and valid points that you raised there, Angela. I think where Namibia is concerned, there's still a lot of education on the matter that needs to happen. But nonetheless, thank you so much for your time this morning. It was lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That was cannabis expert Angela Prusa speaking to us this morning. After the short break, we come back and